Hello and welcome to another trailer analysis, which is apparently something that I do now. Today's trailer, as you may have guessed if you looked at the title of this video, or the thumbnail of this video, or this video, is the Luigi's Mansion 3 trailer from the recent Nintendo Direct. This is actually the third trailer analysis video that I've made for Luigi's Mansion 3. If you haven't seen the first two parts, I'll link to them in the description below, or you could click on that eye in the top right corner. If you've already seen those videos, then perfect. Stick around and we'll jump straight into the analysis. First, I want to talk about this scene of Luigi walking through the mezzanine with food in the background. On the surface, there doesn't seem to be all that much to note about this scene, but this isn't the first time we've seen this room. We actually saw it back in the E3 trailer with this scene of Luigi fighting ghosts in here. And if you compare the two shots, you'll notice a very distinct difference. Well, aside from all the ghosts. Some of the food in the background is missing. Using this clip from the E3 trailer, we can figure out what happened to at least some of the food. It looks like some of the ghosts took the food to use as weapons. At least, that's what happened to the bread. But there's no sign of the lobster or any of the desserts. So it's also possible that the ghosts jumped out of the food, scattering it off screen. Also, while the crown-shaped thing here is mostly untouched, one of the strawberries actually did fall off of the plate. I'm not sure what the implications of this are, but I thought it was a neat little detail. In the next shot, we get another look at the castle-themed floor, apparently called Castle MacFrights. On the door here, we can see more of the stylized S's that this castle is famous for, but the most interesting detail is actually the one that Luigi is looking at, the suit of armor. This armor appears to be the same armor that the king wears in his boss battle, which we saw very briefly in the E3 trailer, though there are a few differences. Most notably, the target on his chest appears to be absent. On a more subtle note, the armor seems to have some sort of gold or bronze on the shoulders, forearms, and shins now, which didn't seem to be the case in the E3 footage. This likely doesn't mean anything. I would assume that they've just updated the armor's appearance since the E3 trailer was revealed. Next, we join Luigi in the overgrown greenhouse floor, also known as the Garden Suites. There are a few things to notice in this room. Firstly, there's the door in the back near Luigi. It seems to be blocked by some overgrowth, as opposed to the ghostly gates that you usually see blocking doors in this game, which implies that gaining access to this door is going to be a little bit more complicated than just beating all of the ghosts in this room. Next, I'd like to point out the buzzsaw in the middle of the room. Judging from all the circles on it, it looks like you can activate this saw by flashing it with the strobe bulb. Who knows, maybe doing so is how you open that door in the back. But admittedly, it seems more likely that the saw will just give you a few coins when it's activated. And speaking of coins, the last thing I want to point out is this painting of coins on the wall. Assuming this works like Luigi's Mansion Dark Moon, if you shine your dark light device on that painting for a few seconds, it'll spew out a small cache of coins for you to collect. I'd also like to point out the new art for the coin paintings. In Luigi's Mansion Dark Moon, the coin paintings only ever depicted a single coin. This painting, however, is an entire pile of coins. Now, it's possible that the original single coin paintings might return as well, perhaps to indicate that the painting will give you fewer coins when shined with the dark light. However, I think it's just as likely that they simply wanted to update the art due to the Switch's higher resolution. Okay, that's everything in the Garden Suites, so let's move on to the Tomb Suites. There are a few details that we get from this first shot, including some skulls and snakes, which, as we'll soon find, seems to be a recurring motif of this floor. But, more interestingly, I'd like to draw your attention to this pinkish hexagon shape. Does that look at all familiar? Kind of like one of the gemstones from Dark Moon, right? As a quick reminder, it's been confirmed that every floor of the hotel is going to have its own themed gems. I'd wager that these are the gems of this floor. Moving on, in the next shot we get our first glimpse of the pyramid, as well as what seems to be the night sky. But once the screen zooms out, we see that the night sky is actually an image being projected onto a series of screens that make up the walls and ceiling of this room. After all, this does take place inside of a hotel, so being able to see the night sky wouldn't really make sense. Although that didn't really seem to be a problem in the first Luigi's Mansion. However, if you want to see something in the background that is real, take a look at this palm tree. While it's impossible to tell what's over there from this footage alone, the fact that it sticks out so much tells me that it's probably important. Or at the very least, maybe there's a gem over there. And lastly, I'd like to point out what appear to be hieroglyphs on either side of the stairs. There's an image of a star, a snake, a skull, a moon, and a bat. The same images appear on the other side of the stairs, only mirrored, and again appear above what I assume is the entrance to the pyramid. I don't know if there's a deeper meaning to any of these shapes, but I figured I'd point them out just to be safe. In the next scene, we see Luigi, presumably now in the pyramid, vacuuming up a lot of sand. And I mean a lot. Judging from this statue over here, Luigi still has several feet of sand to vacuum up. That is, assuming you actually have to vacuum all of the sand, which I actually don't think is the case. If we think about this from a purely game design perspective, if the method for clearing out this room was literally just holding down the vacuum button and spinning in circles, well, that would suck. Literally and figuratively. And I may be reading into something that isn't there, but it kind of looks like Luigi, or whoever is controlling him for this footage, is making a conscious effort to not vacuum the right side of the screen. Perhaps they're trying to keep the truth of this room a secret. Or maybe I'm wrong, and this room really does exist just to show off the Switch's amazing capacity for sand physics. And one more quick detail about this room. See all those spiders on the walls? Their design seems to be based off of the real-world Black Widow spider. Whether this is just a cosmetic change, or if these spiders actually are more dangerous than they used to be, is yet to be seen. Although I should mention these spiders don't seem any more aggressive than they were in the previous game. Next, we get confirmation that mummies return, but more importantly, check out the sarcophagi in this room. More specifically, the sarcophagus on the far left, the one that's the closest to the screen. Each of the sarcophagi are holding some sort of shield-shaped thing against their chest. Notice that they're all only holding it one-handed from underneath, except for the one on the far left. That sarcophagus is holding a perfect circle with both hands. I don't know what makes this particular sarcophagus so special, but it seems to me that he's just asking to get shot by a plunger. Okay, this next room is really bright, so it's kind of hard to see any of the background details, but I'll do my best. If you look to the walls in this room, you'll notice that there are a couple of statues on both sides. There seems to be some kind of weird visual effect happening at each of the statues. I can't figure out what this effect is supposed to represent, although I am fairly confident that it's not a gift shop this time. It also looks like there might be some kind of symbol over the door, but I can't make heads or tails of what it is. If anybody can figure anything out about this room, please leave a comment in, well, the comments. The next scene has Luigi channeling his inner Indiana Jones and running away from a giant boulder. I bet I'm the only one who noticed that, right? More specifically, a boo-shaped boulder. I guess that's what they meant when they said booby traps. Okay, jokes aside, there actually are a few details in this room that you may not have noticed. For example, at the beginning of the clip, the boulder is rolling diagonal toward the screen and to the left. But by the end of the clip, it seems to be moving only to the left. Does this mean that the boulder is actually chasing Luigi? Possibly. I mean, it's a haunted house, anything is possible. But while we're on the topic of boulders, did you notice there's another boulder in the background, wedged inside that snake's mouth on the left? Whether that boulder is also Boo-shaped or not, we can't tell. But I wouldn't be surprised if it was, because Boos tend to be pretty full of themselves. This boulder probably indicates one of two things. Either the other boulder originated in the right snake statue, or if my theory that this boulder is actually chasing Luigi turns out to be correct, that could mean that you actually have to lure the boulder up into the snake statue's mouth. Okay, that's everything about the boulders, but there's still one more thing I want to mention in this room. Take a look at the fountain. Notice anything? Right there. If I'm not mistaken, that seems to be the very top of one of the gemstones. As I mentioned earlier, my current theory is that the gems of Tomb Sweets are the elongated hexagon shapes that we saw earlier. That would mean that the gem would have a flat top, which lines up with what we're seeing here. And now we move on to the best floor, the dance hall. We start out with a shot of the elevator, which confirms that the dance hall is on floor 14. The floor indicator thing above the floor number fits this floor's theme by looking just like a turntable. In other news, there are a lot of neon lights here that depict people dancing, which makes sense considering this is the dance hall. But what I'm more interested in are these lights on the floor. There are 18 squares at Luigi's feet, 8 of which are illuminated. The other 10 are not. However, the squares aren't flashing or changing in any way. The same 8 lights remain lit the entire shot. So, could this be a hint for a future puzzle? Maybe you have to light up squares in a similar pattern? Or maybe the unlit squares are a sort of map, and you have to follow this path to cross a hazardous dance floor somewhere else on this floor. Or maybe I'm just thinking too hard about this. In the next shot, we see that Luigi has joined some dancing ghosts on the dance floor. He's even dancing along, which is kind of surprising considering there are no fewer than 9 ghosts in the room with him. Also, it appears that Luigi is snapping his fingers despite the fact that he's wearing gloves. I don't think that's possible. I mean, it's possible to make the motion of snapping your fingers with gloves on, but I don't think it's possible to actually snap your fingers. Oh, whatever, let him have his fun. There are also a pair of fog machines in this room, which I can't help but think might come into play later. Perhaps they'll turn on while you're fighting ghosts, rendering your strobe bulb ineffective. Also, this lady in the back, she's probably gonna be the boss of this floor. I mean, like, it would make sense, right? And now for the pirate-themed, restaurant-themed floor, also known as the Spectral Catch. Well, it appears to take place in a cave. Look, I couldn't find a lot of details to talk about in this shot. I'm still new to this. I'm doing my best, okay? Let's see. For a restaurant, there doesn't seem to be any tables. That's weird. There are a lot of stools, though. I mean, there is a counter in the far back, and then another one over here. Maybe all this other space is just waiting room, so that you can wait for one of the 2 counters to open up so that you can sit down to eat. Oh, and there's also a large skull in the background. It looks like there might be something in the skull's mouth, maybe a doorway or something. And there's something else in the skull's right eye. That's right from its perspective. I'm not really sure what it is. It kind of looks like a railing with some candles behind it. Maybe you walk past this room on the other side of the skull later on. In the next shot, as the ghost ship is appearing, you can see that much like the Tomb Sweets, this floor also uses screens to project a fake nighttime sky. And then in the next shot, we see the boss of this floor, some sort of shark ghost. But not only is it a shark and a ghost, it's also a pirate. Note the hook hand, or hook fin, and the gold tooth, and whatever that is on the dorsal fin. I guess an earring? And finally, the rest of the trailer is mostly made up of a few clips of the new Scream Park feature showing off the competitive multiplayer. There's really not all that much to point out, aside from maybe Polterpup over here. What is he doing here? Is he friendly? Is he like a power-up? Or is he a bonus ghost? Like if you catch him, it's worth extra points. Oh, I really hope not. I don't want to catch Polterpup, that's just mean. On a related note, I do think it's a little weird that the Scream Park part of this trailer is the only time that an established character other than Luigi appears. Luigi only appears to show off the multiplayer, Polterpup only shows up in a cameo walking by, and Egad is just nowhere in this trailer at all. I think I just figured out how to finish that room with all the sand. I didn't think about this until just now, when I was thinking about how Luigi wasn't in the trailer at all. There are two chains on the right side of the screen. I bet Luigi has to pull on one, and then Luigi pulls on the other, and that's what drains all the sand. And finally, the release date, October 31st. At first glance, this may seem like a completely arbitrary release date, but in reality, nothing could be further from the truth. As it turns out, October 31st is actually a holiday called Halloween, which is a holiday all about spooky stuff, which means it's the perfect day to release a game all about ghosts. Although that might be more a matter of opinion because Luigi's Mansion is much more silly than it is spooky. And with that, we've reached the end of the trailer, but not the end of the analysis. Before we finish, we have to go back to the start. At the beginning of this trailer, there's a shot of the exterior of the hotel. From this shot, we can actually see a few interesting things relating to the floor themes. For example, all of the normal hotel floors are down at the bottom. That is, floors 1 through 5. Then, just above that, you can see what appear to be towers from Castle MacFrights, which, as I mentioned in the previous analysis, I believe is floor 6, so it would make sense that this would be pretty low on the hotel. Over here, you can see what appears to be a greenhouse, most likely from the garden suites. Above that, I believe we can see some sand pouring out of the side of the building. Call me crazy, but I think that that is from the Tomb Suites floor. Next, turn your attention to this wooden section up here. I believe this to be themed after a floor that is themed after a restaurant themed after pirates. In other words, Spectral Catch. And finally, up here near the top are some neon lights. This suggests that this is where the dance hall is. Given that the dance hall is on floor 14, it would make sense that it would be up near the top of the tower. Now, this does leave a few other floors that I can't quite place. The movie studio, which the previous trailer confirmed to be floor 8, would be down here somewhere by the garden suites. However, from the outside, there's no clear indication of whether it's above or below the garden suites. We also saw a mall floor in the previous trailer. Once again, it's hard to place this exactly from the outside, but, I'll guess, I don't know, maybe over here? Now, if you've been paying attention, you may have noticed that that's 12 of the 16 floors above ground accounted for. 2 of the remaining 4 floors, 15 and 16, are going to be above the dance hall. That would mean 15 would be here, and then 16 could be this section under King Boo, or maybe this entire area is floor 15, and 16 is specifically the roof. But as for the 2 unknown floors before floor 14, it's hard to even guess where or what those would be. But I'm willing to take a shot in the dark. The first floor could be right here next to the Spectral Catch, this weird dome-looking structure jutting off to the side. And the other floor might have something to do with these 2 towers that are on either side of the dance hall. I'm not sure how 2 separate towers would really work as a single floor, but they don't really seem to match either of the themes of these floors. So they really stand out to me, and with how much attention to detail there is in this game, I definitely don't believe that they're just for decoration. Does that mean I think I'm right and that these towers are definitely the missing floor? No, not really. Since they're completely disconnected from the main tower, I would actually guess that they're probably side areas that you explore during or after the Spectral Catch section, but I've got no better guesses as to where the missing floor is unless I were to just say, I don't know, somewhere in this area? And then point to the entire section between Castle MacFrights and the dance hall. Okay, and with that, I've covered everything I was able to notice from the newest Luigi's Mansion 3 trailer. If you noticed anything that I missed, feel free to write about it in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.